Hey, I'm Garrett. I'll be doing my presentation on gender dysphoria today. So to begin with are some key vocabulary that I'll be mentioning throughout the video. So to begin with, the subject of this presentation is gender dysphoria. So this is technically the distress that may accompany the incongruence between one's experienced or expressed gender and one's assigned gender. So the assigned gender, that is also referred to as the natal gender. This is a gender assigned at birth. The experienced gender is a gender that is expressed or they feel. A transsexual. So transsexual denotes an individual who seeks or has undergone a social transition from male to female or vice versa, which in many, but not all cases, also results in a somatic transition by cross-sex hormone treatment and genital surgery, also known as sex reassignment surgery. To begin with, the diagnostic features for gender dysphoria in children. So this is different than adults. They must have six of the following, as well as being of at least 6 months duration. So a strong desire to be of the other gender, or an insistence that one is the other gender, a strong preference for wearing clothes typical of the opposite gender, a strong preference for cross-gender roles in make-believe or fantasy play, a strong preference for the toys, games, or activities stereotypically used or engaged in by the other gender, a strong preference for playmates of the other gender, a strong rejection of toys, games, and activities typical of one's assigned gender, a strong dislike of one's sexual anatomy, and a strong desire for the physical sex characteristics that match one's experienced gender. Now for adults, they're different because they only need two of the following and must be of at least 6 months duration. So, as stated prior, a marked incongruence between one's experienced/expressed gender and primary and/or secondary sex characteristics, a strong desire to be rid of one's primary and/or secondary sex characteristics, a strong desire for the primary and/or secondary sex characteristics of the other gender, a strong desire to be of the other gender, a strong desire to be treated as the other gender, and lastly, a strong conviction that one has the typical feelings and reactions of the other gender. It is also important to know, if you're a therapist, that you need to specify the person also has a disorder of sex development as well, and it's also important to clarify if the person is in post-transition. So this is to where they have transitioned to full-time living as a desired gender and has undergone at least one treatment regimen. So namely, this would be cross-sex hormone treatment or gender reassignment surgery. And next are the associated features. So, for example, a prepubertal natal girl expressing the desire to be a boy, assert they are one, and desire to eventually grow up to be a man. She would prefer the clothing of boys and hairstyles, would often be seen by strangers as boys, and may ask to be called a boy's name. So, for instance, her name originally being Erica, she would ask to be called Eric. She would display negative reactions to being called her assigned gender, and be made to wear traditionally feminine clothing such as dresses, skirts, the like. She would prefer to have boys as playmates, and she would be interested in typically masculine games like contact sports and rough and tumble play. She would have little interest in traditional feminine toys such as like a Barbie doll or Bratz. She'd more than likely be interested in like a Tonka truck or Hot Wheels or something else stereotypically masculine. So for prepubertal natal boys disorder, it's kind of the same thing, but like vice versa. So boys or children of this disorder, like boys, they would express a desire to be a girl or assert they want to grow to be a woman. As stated prior, they'd have a preference for women's clothes. They would typically avoid contact sports, roughhousing, like type play. They would prefer to like role play as a female figure, such as like playing mom. They prefer playing with Barbie dolls, brats, instead of like race cars, stuff with like. Let's see here. Yeah, and the typical games they would engage in would be like playing house, playing dress up, stuff like that, traditionally feminine in nature. So in young adolescents, clinical features may resemble either those of children or adults depending on their developmental level. So when visible signs of puberty develop, natal boys may shave their legs. They may also bind their genitals. So females may also bind their breasts or release clothing to make them less visible. In adults with gender dysphoria, the difference between the experienced gender and physical sex characteristics is often, but not always, accompanied by a strong desire to be rid of primary and/or secondary sex characteristics of the other gender. Adults with a disorder may adopt the behavior, clothing, and mannerisms of the experienced gender. So, adults with this, they do not always seek medical treatment to alter their bodies to deal with the incongruence they feel, and may instead find other ways to resolve the difference between the assigned and experienced gender, such as by partially living in the desired role, or by adopting a gender role neither conventionally male nor conventionally female, or by cross-dressing, and adopting behavior, clothing, and mannerisms. This next brings us to prevalence. So for natal adult males, the prevalence ranges from 0.005% to 0.014%. For natal adult females, the prevalence ranges from 0.002% to 0.003%. Now these rates are likely modest underestimates. Sex ratios of natal boys range from 2 to 1 and 4.5 to 1. In adolescents, sex ratio is close to being a parity or being equal. In adults, sex ratio favors natal males by quite a bit, with the ratios ranging from 1 to 1 and 6.1 to 1. 1.5 million people in the United States are transgender, which is 0.5% of the population. Prevalence in other countries is about the same. Most children with the childhood form do not become adults with the disorder. 1.5% of young boys wish to be a girl, while 3.5% of young girls wish to be a boy. So, next part of prevalence. 9% of Americans say they have a close friend or family member that is transgender. For natal male children whose gender dysphoria does not persist, the majority are androphilic, so that means they are sexually attracted to males. They self-identify as homosexual or gay. These ranges from 63 to 100%. For natal female children, the percentage who are gynophilic, which means they're sexually attracted to females, and self-identify as lesbian, are a bit lower, so for them it would be 32 to 50%. Now, in terms of discrimination they face, it's pretty bad. It's 89% of transgender people have been harassed at school or work, 50% fired from a job, not hired or not promoted, 20% have been denied a place to live. Now, in terms of prison, which is even worse, an estimated 1 in 6 transgender individuals will be incarcerated at some point in their lives. Approximately 3,200 transgender inmates nationwide as of 2012. They're more likely to be arrested and detained, as well as also being 13 times more likely than their non-transgender counterparts to be sexually assaulted in prison. Estimated 59% of transgender inmates have reported sexual assault while incarcerated. A study found they are more likely to be bullied than the general populace, also more likely to be bullied than the clinical control group they went up against, and the non-clinical control group they went up against in just regular schools. In terms of the sexual reassignment surgery, 1 in every 3,100 persons in the United States has had or will have sex change surgery during their lifetime. So for female-assigned persons, the incidence is 1 in every 4,200. For male-assigned individuals, the rate is 1 in every 2,500, and sadly, many insurance companies outright refuse to cover these treatments. This next brings us to etiology. So the disorder sometimes runs in families, but this is found to be weak. People whose siblings have the disorder more than likely have it. Males with gender dysphoria more commonly have older brothers than do males without the condition. People with gender dysphoria have heightened blood flow in the insula and reduced blood flow in the anterior cingulate cortex. These areas play roles in human sexuality and consciousness, so this is a biological aspect. Something else in the biological aspect was from a study from 20 years ago. It's still receiving consideration. It basically autopsied 6 people who have changed their sex from male to female specifically. They found that a cluster of cells in the hypothalamus called the bed nucleus of stria terminalis, or BST, was only as large in these people as it was in the control group of non-transgender men. Typically, a woman's BST is smaller than a man's, so the male-assigned people with gender dysphoria had a female-sized BST. Scientists are not entirely sure what BST does in humans. They do know it regulates sexual behavior in male rats. So, yeah. This next brings us to forms of treatment. So, to begin with, many adults with gender dysphoria receive psychotherapy. A great number of them also seek to address their concerns. They begin by engaging in hormone treatments. So, for instance, males will receive estrogen, which leads to breast development, loss of body and facial hair, and changes in body fat distribution. They also are likely to go through speech therapy to raise their standard tenor voice, to also through training. Fewer have facial feminization surgery. So, It sounds exactly like what it sounds like, which is basically a reduction of masculine facial features to give your face a more feminine look. Females, on the other hand, they receive testosterone. This leads to a deeper voice, increased muscle mass, and changes in body and facial hair. So hormone therapy allows many to lead a fulfilling life, but it's not for everyone. The next step would be sexual reassignment / sex change surgery. So to do this, an individual must first go through 1 to 2 years of hormone treatments prior. Males go through a process called vaginoplasty. So this is a partial removal of the penis and restructuring of its remaining parts into a clitoris and vagina. Female surgery can include a bilateral mastectomy and hysterectomy. They may also get a phalloplasty. Alternatively, doctors have developed a silicone prosthesis that can give patients an appearance of having male genitals. Many patients also opt to have plastic surgery to the face, both male and female. So, lastly, for treatment and comorbidity, transgender people being the victims of hate crimes at proportionally higher rates than lesbian, gay, and bisexual people. The constant discrimination and marginalization that transgender people face likely undermines their psychological functioning. Clinically referred children with this disorder show elevated levels of emotional and behavioral problems, so most commonly seen as anxiety, disruptive and impulse control, and depressive disorders. This increases with age due to increasing non-acceptance. As they hit teenagers, they increasingly get ostracized by their peers. Autism spectrum disorder is more prevalent in clinically referred children with this disorder than the general population. And anxiety and depression are the most common comorbid disorders to have with gender dysphoria. And lastly, in terms of the treatment, clinicians have greatly debated if sexual reassignment surgery is an appropriate treatment for gender dysphoria. Some consider it a humane solution, while others argue that it is a drastic non-solution for a complex disorder. The surgery is on the rise regardless. The majority of people who have undergone this surgery have reported satisfaction. There are, however, other studies that yielded less favorable findings. The long-term study in Sweden found that while surgery did decrease gender dysphoria, they had a higher rate of psychological disorders and suicide attempts than the general population. It is also important to note that people with serious pre-treatment psychological disturbances, such as a personality disorder, seem most likely to regret surgery. So for all the public interest in these types of sexual and gender disorders, clinical theorists and practitioners have only just recently begun to truly understand their nature and how to treat them. So we're very far away from being perfect. There are my references. So thanks for listening. I hope, depending on when you watch this, you have a great rest of the day or rest of the night.